It's Friday, November 22nd, and it's time to break down the big issues facing our nation.
Welcome to The Breakdown, KUJH's political news and analysis program. I'm Eric Pauls.
And I'm Caitlin Dornbos. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid went nuclear yesterday with an unprecedented decision that has Washington wondering what's next. Eric and I will break down the filibuster rule change during today's Big Issue segment.
And later in the program, I'll speak with Cynthia Marta, president of KU's Able Hawks and Allies, about the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and KU's accessibility improvements for students with disabilities.
But first, let's catch up on today's latest political headlines.
White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Josh Earnest joined Democratic State Representative Barbara Ballard of Lawrence yesterday in a telephone news conference urging Kansas Republicans to expand Medicaid coverage in the state.
The Affordable Care Act allows states to expand the eligible income requirements of the government-paid health insurance program for low-income Americans. If they do, the federal government will then pay for the expanded coverage for 3 years, and then no less than 90% of the coverage after that.
What this means for you is 100,000 more Kansans could receive health insurance if they could not otherwise afford if Kansas agrees to the expansion offer.
But with a majority of a Republican Party in the legislature, it will be a tough fight for Ballard to get the expansion approved. During the 2013 legislative cycle, Kansas Republicans expressed concern that the federal government would fail to follow through with its promise to pay for the expanded Medicaid coverage.
The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, is suing Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach over Kansas's law prohibiting voter registrants who failed to show proof of citizenship from voting in state elections, but allowing them to vote in national elections.
The ACLU claims this dual system of voter registration is unconstitutional. In a news release this week, the ACLU said, quote, "It makes absolutely no sense that someone would be qualified to vote for president, but not for governor."
Kobach responded to the suit, calling it strange and surprising. Kobach said, "They're suing to stop the very thing that I'm trying to stop, which is a two-tiered system." Kobach believes proof of citizenship should be both a requirement for state and national elections.
What this means for you? The suit could eventually change Kansas voting law, but for now, new voting registrants in Kansas must still submit their proof of citizenship in time to vote in the state elections in 2014.
A group of KU Young Americans for Liberty members donned empty gun holsters on campus Tuesday in a demonstration protesting gun restrictions at the university. The protesters said students have the rights to defend themselves and those rights should extend to campus.
In July, state legislators passed a law allowing concealed carry permit holders to bring guns into public buildings that have inadequate security measures. However, KU received a 4-year exemption from this law while they try to beef up their security measures.
What this means for you is regardless of your stance on gun control, it's encouraging to see a group of students stand up for their beliefs. KU will remain a gun-free zone at least until 2017, when it will either have to allow concealed carry or install security measures like metal detectors in all buildings. So in the meantime, on either side of the issue, make your voice heard.
Moving on to today's big breakdown issue, the nuclear option.
225 years ago, a precedent was set in the United States Senate that any senator, no matter the affiliation or issue, as long as the senator was willing to stand up and talk, he or she could remain uninterrupted, and no progress could be made as long as he or she remained standing and talking.
Now, this process came to be known as the filibuster, and it was valuable because it allowed members of the minority party to thwart the majority party's ability to pass any law that they pleased. A minority party member could stand up and call attention to an issue or delay a bill or nomination until an issue was addressed.
Yesterday, in the United States Senate, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid decided that this rule was being abused. Rather than requiring 60 votes out of 100 senators to vote to end a filibuster and vote on a bill, Reid passed a rule change that reduced that number to a simple majority of 51 votes when it comes to approving executive branch appointments.
Now, this unprecedented change comes after Republicans used the filibuster to block President Obama's judicial appointment nominees at record high levels. With this rule in place, the minority party has been limited as to what they can stand in front of and what issues they can legitimately contest. In 2005 and 2008, Senator Reid spoke up adamantly against the rule change, but yesterday, ironically, he was the one who pushed it through.
And Republicans argue that out of hundreds of judicial nominations, only 5 have been rejected. But nonetheless, many senators from both sides have completely flip-flopped from where they were on this debate in 2005.
Now, here are some clips from leaders from both sides of the aisle who have completely switched their points of view over the years.
Today's pattern of obstruction, it just isn't normal. I support the step a majority of senators today took to change the way that Washington is doing business. But if the right of free and open debate is taken away from the minority party and the millions of Americans who ask us to be their voice, I fear that the already partisan atmosphere in Washington will be poisoned to the point where no one will be able to agree on anything.
Rather than learn from past precedents on judicial nominations that they themselves set, Democrats now want to set another one. Now, I have no doubt that if they do, they will come to regret that one as well. The current Senate majority intends to do what the majority in the Senate has often done, to reform Senate procedure by a simple majority vote. Despite the incredulous protestations of our Democratic colleagues, the Senate has repeatedly adjusted its rules as circumstances dictate.
This is what really is going on here. The majority doesn't want to hear what others have to say, even if it's the truth. The nuclear option abandons America's sense of fair play. It's the one thing this country stands for, not tilting the playing field on the side of those who control and own the field. I say to my friends on the Republican side, you may own the field right now, but you won't own it forever. And I pray God when the Democrats take back control, we don't make the kind of naked power grab you are doing, but I'm afraid you will teach my new colleagues the wrong lesson.
Now, there was testimony from one senator yesterday who has kept his same opinion on the nuclear option. It was Senator John McCain of Arizona, and he had this to say.
Boy, this gives new meaning as to where you stand on an issue as opposed to where you sit. Yes, I'm upset. Yes, several occasions. We have gotten together on a bipartisan basis and prevented what exactly happened today. And what exactly happened today is not just a shift in power to appoint judges. That in itself is something that's very important. But what we really did today, and what is so damning, and what will last for a long time unless we change it, that could permanently change the unique aspects of this institution, the United States Senate, is if a majority can change the rules, then only a majority can change the rules, then there are no rules. That is the only conclusion that anyone can draw from what we did today.
Now, you know, Eric, the change to the filibuster rules is called the nuclear option because of the tremendous implications it has for both parties. What do you think that Reed's decision will do for the Republican Party specifically in the next election cycle?
Well, it'll certainly make them, especially after the videos we've seen here, it'll certainly make them look like the antagonist on this issue, being the ones that spoke out against it in 2005 and 2008, and now they are the ones that, according to Majority Leader Reed, caused it.
Well, and it also comes on the back of the government shutdown, and the Republican Party's kind of lost some face there, seeing like they didn't want to work with each other. But then again, the Democrats can lose some credibility too with this whole thing because they're going to look like the power-hungry seekers that want to push those judicial nominees through.
Well, and it's an alteration of what the Senate was built on. I mean, the Senate was designed to be, according to Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, that cooling plate where laws can come burning through the House of Representatives, and once they get to the Senate, it's supposed to be kind of taken apart and looked at and calmly looked at. And you know, I also think, if I could take this somewhere else also, that this also could have an effect on the Obamacare debate, simply because one of the reasons that a lot of people have said Kathleen Sebelius has kept her job as Secretary of Health and Human Services is it would be impossible to get a replacement for her. Well, now that it's easier to get a replacement, she might be closer to the chopping block.
Well, I don't know what the likelihood of President Obama actually getting rid of Kathleen Sebelius is. I mean, with that reasoning, you could say that it's more likely that you or I would be pushed through the Senate, you know? So, but yes, I agree, though.
It certainly would make his replacement process easier. I'm not saying that it will happen, but it could make his replacement process easier.
Absolutely.
So sound off and let us know what you guys think on Facebook and Twitter. And when we come back, I will be interviewing the president of KU's Disabilities Advocacy Group, Abel Hawks, about the UN Disability Treaty discussed on last week's breakdown and work being done across campus for the disabled. So we'll be right back with that.